members here at the school that have put together things that we do to raise our concern for each other here at the school, within the community. And also on behalf of the Student Assembly, which previewed Mr. Tooman's tapes, and through their vote and their efforts, came to the principal and some of the others after they'd been approached by a young man you're going to meet in just a moment, came up with this program that you're going to see tonight and that your kids have been talking to you about since Monday, if you have an Oakwood student, since Tuesday at Kelly, or since Wednesday or Thursday if you have a student here at the high school. I want to take an opportunity to introduce a couple of people without whose help things wouldn't go as smoothly as they do. And those are members of our Board of Education. I have 3 of them. I put them over in the corner over here where I can keep my eye on them all the time. If you stand, I have Gene Kaminsky, Chuck Harwood, and Pete Boydenoff. All 3 of those gentlemen are great supporters of the school and the school system, as well as the other members of the board. And they always attend my PPG meetings, which is the Principal Parents Group, which meets the second Thursday of every month, and that is tonight. But they are probably pleased that they don't have to listen to me tonight, nor will we have a business meeting after the presentation by Mr. Tooman. What I'd like to do is introduce a young man to you that will tell you some things about our speaker. One of the things you're going to learn tonight, and our kids learned today, is that each of us have an opportunity to make a difference. The only reason you are here tonight is through the efforts of one of our students and no one else. This person talked to someone who had heard Mr. Tooman speak. He approached me and we discussed it. He brought in a tape, and I made the decision that he should approach the Student Assembly, who I allow to make most of the decisions around here, or at least they think they run the school, and most of the time they do. But without this person's efforts and continued efforts, this program would not be taking place tonight. So I'd like to introduce one of our students here at East Detroit High School, Jim DeCicero.
Please have the opportunity to introduce our speaker tonight, Jim Tooman. A little bit about his background. He's a graduate of Michigan State University. He developed 3 national programs dealing with youth, women, and returning veterans. He has appeared on ABC, NBC, and CBS National News, The Today Show, Our Magazine, National PM Magazine, and the Charles Kraut Morning Show and Oprah Winfrey Show. He has been featured in Newsweek, USA Today, Business Week, Chicago Sun-Times, Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, Detroit Free Press, and the Detroit News. He has been the subject of a half-hour documentary shown nationwide in Japan in March of '84. Tooman believes in balance in his life, and so has done such diverse things as being a circus clown, rodeo rider, classical musician, cake decorator, and parade enthusiast. He has spent part of the summer of '85 working as a famine relief worker in Ethiopia. He's also spent the summer of '83 as a roadie with the rock group Journey. Tooman has also passed the milestone of speaking to more than 1 million students to more than 1,000 schools worldwide. And tonight he's with us, so let's give him a warm, shamrock welcome.
What Jim neglected to mention, can you turn that down a little bit? Thanks. What Jim neglected to mention was, and what was consciously omitted in the introduction, was that I was also a 7-letter athlete in high school. I was a class officer 4 years running. I carried an A- average, and I also tried to kill myself 3 times. 3 times I tried to kill myself, because I was living off the image. You know, I was so afraid if something happened on that football field, when the smoke cleared, there would be no one there for me. No one there for me. You see, in my So the more I performed, the greater the love. And when you were a shy, insecure boy, as I saw myself, you were always afraid in the back of your mind, what happens one day if you don't perform? What happens one day if you don't cut it? What happens one day if you don't make the grade? And you see, I grew up in a macho family. Ever since I was probably 7 or 8 or 9 years old, best recollection, I was always told it was weak, it was wrong, it was unmanly to share my feelings. So I kept stuffing my feelings down further and further and further. And there's no place to go when you stuff your feelings down that far. I have to tell you, 4 years ago, I had probably the biggest turn ever happened in my whole life. Ever. I was speaking at a school in Dearborn, and somebody pulled me off to the side and said, "Hey, Jim, you've got big-time problems. Sounds real serious. You better take care of them." Turned out my father had had a series of heart attacks, 3 in succession. You know, I can tell all of you, and every time I relive this in my head, I cannot remember finishing that program. But I do remember getting on a plane, getting to New York City where he lived, walking into a hospital room, and seeing my father lay down in a coma, intravenous bottles coming out, tubes sticking out all over. And the first thing I did was I walked over to his bedside and I grabbed his hands. I grabbed his hands. And I wanted at that moment to tell this man I loved him. I wanted to tell him he was special. I wanted to tell him he had made a difference in my life. You know, I couldn't do it. All the old tapes kept playing in my head. It's not safe. You see, my family was very effective at shutting me down. Every time I go to open up, they would always tell me, "Hey, I can't be bothered now. Don't talk to me. Don't let me see you cry. Go back to your room. I haven't got time." So the old tapes kept playing in my head. It's not safe. Don't say it. He's going to hurt you in some way. He's going to put you down. I sat in that hospital room day and night for 2 straight days, watching him moving in and out of a coma. Sometimes for a minute or 2, sometimes a couple minutes more. And each time there was another opportunity, each time same stuff played in my head. Instead, what I said to him was, "Dad, do you need anything? Do you want a drink of water? Do you want me to get the nurse?" When in my gut I wanted to tell him I loved him. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. The fear overtook me all the time. His life was hanging by a thread, and I still couldn't find the courage. Day and night, watching him move in and out. Every time another opportunity, and every time being shut down. Well, you know, not only just through luck, but I think through the strength of the man, my father survived the heart attacks. And by coincidence, as life would have it, about a month later, I got essentially a second chance to tell him what I couldn't do that night in the hospital. I had a speaking engagement in New York City, and I called him up probably a couple of days before I was going to be there. He had just gotten out of the hospital. And I said, "Dad, let's get together for dinner, you and I. There's something really important I have to tell you." He gave me the perfect out. He said, "Jim, I got dinner plans. What about lunch?" Well, I had a program to do. I had television commitments. I had meetings. I was flying in early that morning, flying back out that night. I was going to see my father for a couple of minutes on the way back from some of my programs on the way to the airport. I rearranged everything to get to that restaurant a half an hour early to tell him for the first time in my life that I loved him. And I sat in that restaurant doing mind games. What words were going to make him not put me down? What words were going to make him not hurt me? What words were going to make him not laugh at me? What words were going to make him not be silent, which was my father's most effective weapon, and shut me down instantly? And I sat in that restaurant and panicked out, got up, and started walking around the block just trying to get my courage up. I completely lost track of time, and I happened to glance over one of the buildings. And I realized I was 15 minutes late. And I tore back into that restaurant as fast as I could, knowing that my father would be there, waiting for me. He runs his whole life by his watch, and I knew he'd be sitting there. And sure enough, there he was, and the first thing he did was he put his finger in my face. And he said, "Why are you 15 minutes late?" He says, "You know I've only got an hour for lunch." He says, "When are you going to be on time?" And I looked at this man and I said, "No way. No way. I can't be hurt anymore. No way." Except I looked back at him. He had lost 50 pounds since the heart attacks. His face had virtually no color. And as most of you in the room, if you've ever seen death in somebody's face, that's what I saw that day. And I knew there was no third chance on this one. So I grabbed his hands again, and I said, "Dad, thanks for waiting up till 2 o'clock in the morning when I didn't show up all night. Thanks for standing by me when I tore the cartilage in my knee, couldn't finish the last 3 football games, and a ton of guys came down on my back. Thanks for bailing me out, Ted. I really love you." And as I said, "I really love you," I put my head down. I was hoping this guy wouldn't hear me at all. I raised my head up, and it was the last reaction in the world I could have ever imagined. For the first time in my life, never ever saw it at my grandfather's funeral, for the first time in my life, I watched my father cry. And all the stuff that was in front of me, I just let go. Just let go. And I walked around the table and I held him. I held him. I had waited my whole life just to do this. And I put my arms around him and I cried. I can tell all of you in the room, especially the boys and the men, that for me personally, this ranks at the top of the best moments I've ever had in my whole life. Ever had in my whole life. And I got together with my father the next morning for breakfast. And he told me something that just blew me out of the water. He said, "Jim, I would have gone to my grave and not been able to tell you that I loved you. Because my grandfather told him that it was wrong. He just passed that one on to me. Just passed that one on to me." Well, you know, all of us in the room, parents in particular, we've inherited both the good and the bad from our parents. And I'm saying to you tonight to make a silent commitment at the beginning of this program to say to yourselves, "I will do everything in my power not to keep the continuity of all the negativity that I have inherited from my family and pass it on to my children." Parents in the room, raise your hand, please, if you have a best friend. Thank you. Now raise your hand, parents, individually, any of you, and tell me, what makes that person a best friend to you? Anybody? Yes, please.
Because I can confide anything in the person.
You can confide anything. Excellent. Anybody else? What makes that person a best friend? Yes, please. Yes.
You can tell that person anything if you cry or do something wrong, they'll come.
You can tell that person anything. If they cry, you're right. Anybody else? Yes.
They're always there for you when you need them, never let you down.
Always there for you when you need them, never let you down. Over here.
They love you unconditionally.
They love you unconditionally. Yes.
They listen.
They listen. Anybody else? Anyone else? Yes. They believe you. Okay? Why didn't the half dozen or so of you that just spoke? Why didn't you mention the job that person had? Houses that they lived in? Cars they drove? Money that they did or didn't have? Anybody? Not important? Doesn't matter? Well, that's exactly what your children said today and yesterday and the day before and the day before. person. It's a safe place where all of us in the room can go to be ourselves. And we all seek that out in our lives. And we all try. But I have to tell you that probably the most common 4 words that I hear across the board in speaking around the country, now to more than 1,000 schools, more than 1 million students, is this: I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. And that's not physically safe. That's a safe place. And I say to parents that if you do nothing else but this, if you create a place that your children can come back, no matter how badly they've messed up in their lives, if they know that they can always come back, then you have done an incredible job of parenting. Incredible. Unfortunately, we wind up giving our children gifts that they don't want and need. Did you ever get a gift from somebody you loved, and you got that person was so excited to give you this gift, it was a special occasion. It was your birthday, it was Christmas, it was a holiday, and that person took a lot of extra time to gift wrap something, to pick out something that they thought you would love. And they handed you this gift, and they were no more than 2 or 3 feet away from you. And you put the gift on your lap, and you started tugging at the beautifully wrapped bowl. And they said, come on, jump in. And you started pulling it off. Started pulling it off. Opened up the box, looked at the gift, and said, wow, this is something that I always wanted. When in the back of your mind you were saying to yourselves, now what time do the stores open up tomorrow so I can get this sucker back? We are giving people gifts that they don't want and need. Because all too often, we wind up guessing. We guess what each other wants and needs. And as I said, we guess wrong. I always try and keep my talks as current as possible, and I always try and work it into the things that I see as I travel. And last summer I had a particularly poignant experience. I went to a Little League game. And I went there to support a friend of mine whose son was playing on one of the teams. And I walked all the way down to the last seat in the bleachers. I got there about the 2nd or 3rd inning. And I sat down next to a man whose son was also playing on one of the teams. And I watched this man. He was involved in every pitch. Every pitch. He was screaming instructions to his son. Move back, come forward. Watch the batter. Concentrate. And when this boy was up at bat, the father was even more merciless. Hold that bat up. Watch the ball. Connect. And this boy who so much wanted his father's approval was trying as hard as he could. And I watched him after every pitch. Every time he swung, he'd kind of glance over and look at his father to make sure his father was watching. Well, the score was tied. Last inning, opposing team up at bat, boy on second base. Batter hits a fly ball out to this man's son in the outfield, and this boy misjudges the ball, and the winning run scores. All the bench is emptied out. Some parents to congratulate their kids, some parents to console their kids, and I watched this man. He took his fist and he started pounding on his thighs, put his head down, jumped up out of his seat, and started charging out to the outfield where his son was walking in, his head down, dejected that went charging up to his son, got within a couple of feet of this boy, called this boy's name out. This boy raised his head to see who it was, and this man took his right hand and cracked his son across the face. Every head turned. Every head turned. It was like a silence on that field. And this man got so conscious, he got so conscious of what he had done, that he started walking over as his son was walking away, walking over to put his arm around his son. And I was hoping this boy would cry, just get angry, just get something out. But this boy stuffed it. And this man went to put his arm around his son, and his son pulled away. And I watched this whole scene. And like all of us in the room, I felt for the boy. But I got to tell you something honestly. I also felt for the man. I knew that this man did not mean to do this. I knew he didn't mean to do this. He got so caught up in the winning and losing that he forgot at that moment that his son really needed him. And that's a lifetime scar. That's a lifetime scar. That's never going to heal. It doesn't matter how many wonderful Father and Son weekends they go on. How many gifts he gives his son. What he does, how many fishing trips. It's always going to be this much. This much. It's the gap of trust. This much. And those things happen. They happen because we never step back to see what our actions are going to do. There isn't one of us in this room, myself included in particular, who can't draw back to a time in our lives when somebody said something to us or did something to us physically that was abusive, that we stored and we could snap it up as if it happened yesterday. Because those things stick. Those things stay. And they don't go away. They don't go away. And we get struggle, parents in this room. We struggle with what's important in our lives. What has value to us? I used to play a lot of football, and I used to run underneath this sign, this big sign on the gym wall that says, "Power and prestige are real short-lived." And I used to think this was nuts. I had a family that this was contrary to everything that they believed. They believed that power and prestige were where it was at. And it wasn't until 4 or 5 or 6 years ago that I was actually drew back on that sign, and it happened on a plane that I was going to California to speak, and I just remembered it. Well, you know something? That sign, power and prestige is real short-lived. It's just another platitude, all of us. We know it in our heads. We struggle with it in our hearts, but we know it's true. But it is just another platitude. So I'll tell you what I'll do tonight, okay? And I have yet to lose this bet, but I am always willing to pay off. Always. I'm willing to bet anyone in the room dinner at a place of your choice. I'll pull out my credit card. If you guys can name me the last 5 presidents of General Motors. Anybody? Anyone want to take a shot? Please, I've been waiting for this for a couple of years. By the way, these men would be appalled that you didn't know who they were. They worked 18-hour days, denied their family for weeks at a time, slept at the top of the General Motors building so that they could get down to their office and you guys don't remember who they are. We struggle with this. What is important to us? What's important? Somewhere between Minnesota and here, the last time I spoke is my suitcase floating around, but in it is a tape of a song that I love to play at parent programs. And it's called Cats in the Cradle. Parents in the room, raise your hand if you know the song. I advocate, by the way, for every parent in the room to listen to that song at least once a year. It is just a reminder of parenting. Just a reminder of parenting. And for those of you in the room who are a little bit vague on the song itself, it's the dialogue between a father and son. And at the beginning of the song, the father is busy on his upwardly mobile track, doesn't have time for the son who's asking to be a part of his life. Slowly but surely, as the song moves through, the roles start to shift. The father is getting a little older, now all of a sudden has some idea of what has value to him. And at the end of the song, the father says, I'd like to spend some time with you. The son says, well, my kids are sick and I'm really busy now, but maybe we'll do it someday soon. And the beautiful last words of the song is, and he turned out just like me. And he turned out just like me. If you want to see where your children are going, look at where you are today. Look at where you are today. I was speaking in New York City this past fall, and a teacher got up at the assembly. And she had given her class, she was an English teacher, she had given her class an assignment to prepare themselves to an inanimate object. And this one young boy who was the most popular kid in school, he compared himself to a rubber band. He said, I am a rubber band. People pull at me, twist me, and stretch me thin. I've been trying to bounce back as a rubber band should. I have many times, but it's getting harder and harder, and I'm getting thin and worn. People keep pulling at me, twisting and stretching me, and I feel tighter and tighter. I know when I break, people will feel sorry because they can't use me anymore. But they stretch me, and I feel thin and worn, then I'll break, but it'll be too late. Teacher was going through her own painful divorce. She got to school, she got that assignment. By coincidence, this boy's mother had also found the assignment that morning as he was preparing for school. I have a question for all of you parents. If you saw this, would you take it seriously? Anybody? Yes. Okay? Now, since I pretty much identify with this boy, it's interesting because I see a lot of the parallels of my own life in this. If you were a parent, what would you want to say to this boy to elicit some trust so that this boy would trust you enough to tell you what was going on inside? Any parent, what would you want to say? Go ahead. I'm your son, and you're trying to get me to open up enough so that I'll trust you. So I'll tell you what's going on inside. Go ahead, Mom.
Well,
Can all of you hear? All right. Can you stand up just to help us out? Thanks. I'm sorry.
Well, kiddo, we all get knocked. We all get used. And quite often we all get straight. But I do love you, and I do understand it. And I may not feel the pain you feel exactly.
Mom, I'm not feeling any pain. Why do you think I'm feeling pain here?
Because I love you, son, and I get the message.
message, Mom? What kind of message are you getting out of this?
I'm getting the message that you feel very, very strange.
I'm not feeling strained. My teacher just gave me an assignment. What do you make more out of this than it is?
Your teacher may have given you an assignment, but there's more to that than what's on here.
There's no more to that. Mom, stop it. Leave me alone.
Okay, fine, son. I love you, but I'm here if you need me.
Thank you, Mom. Any other parent want to take a shot? Anybody else? What would you do? This is an actual situation, by the way. This is not, this is not fabricated. Yes.
I would just assure him.
No, go ahead. You and I.
Oh, okay.
Jim.
Jim?
Yeah.
Jim, I love you a whole lot, and I am here for you. If you're feeling like you need to talk about anything, I am always here to listen to you, and please come to me if I can help you with anything.
Mom, thanks. I appreciate it. Have we gotten any place yet so far? Thank you, by the way. And I can feel the love, but thank you. Anybody else? Go, Mom. I love it. It's like Donnie. I love this stuff. Go. Especially with a cordless knife. Yes.
Just want to tell you I've been a kid myself, too, and I've been through those experiences.
You kidding, Mom? Really? You've been through these? You always look like I got it together, Mom. What do you mean you've been through these?
Growing up is just hard.
It's growing up is hard? Yeah, it is. So?
If you didn't want to talk to, I'm here.
Thank you, Mom. I appreciate it. Okay. Actually, no. Yeah, that's great, because I would, go ahead. Yeah. Why don't you stand up and just, because most of the people in the room can't hear you. Go ahead. Why don't you, can you help me out? You play Mom a little bit on this, because I want to exchange. By the way, what's your first name? Les? The last person, yes. Catherine. Catherine was close. Catherine was close. Go ahead. Yeah.
All I was saying is if I would something like that, my mother had to deal with something like that, I know that along with the problems that I kind of been a lot more than just what was on that page.
She'd be able to handle it, which is excellent. That's a real credit to you, Mom.
Usually when I talk to my kids, I tell them,
Go ahead. You want to do that with me? Go ahead.
you know what? I'm really disturbed at what you wrote to me.
Why are you disturbed, Mom?
Oh, because I think you're doing a really great catch.
No, okay.
I really think that
You got to talk a little louder.
I really think that maybe we need to share something with you. And when you're
I
ready,
don't need to share it with you, Mom, but thanks for your concern.
I'll tell you something. Honey, I watch you.
Uh-huh.
And I'm really concerned about this. That you're better. And you know, it's just an assignment. You know what?
Yeah, the people can hear you.
I can't get to understand what you're doing right now, but you know what? I wish you shared with me.
Well,
Try to talk to me and help me understand.
I will do that, Mom. Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Go ahead. Why don't you stand up and help, because people, it's going to be, I have the mic, so I'll do the back and forth here. Go ahead.
I would say this is really good. Do you really think that people feel like this? Sometimes I do. Do you think that other people feel like this? How did you think of this?
I just was pulling a rubber band, and I just, it was just like the teacher gave me this assignment. I just had a rubber band on my desk, and I was pulling it back and forth, and that's it.
I think that's really good the way you related it to a rubber band. I never would have thought of a rubber band.
Thank
Do
you.
you really think that people feel like that? Or do they
Sometimes.
feel like we just see it on TV or something?
Nah, I just was playing with a rubber band. Thank you. Have we gotten any trust? We came close, by the way. Have we gotten any trust yet, anybody? One more person, and then I'm gonna help this through. Yes. Come on, can you come up and?
I just want to say maybe what you need is to share a similar experience that you had.
Go ahead. You're right on target.
There was a time in my life that I thought I could make suicide too, so maybe
I don't think about committing suicide.
well, I
I mean, you're on target. You're on target, and I want you to hold and think about this. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, Jim, your grandfather was the same way. I got the impression that I did when I read that, because I can remember a time in my life when I felt like nobody loved me.
You're kidding, Dad, really?
Yeah. I tried to talk to my dad quite a bit, and he's always the type of person, he was, you know, real macho, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to talk to him, and he fluffed me off. I can remember a time that I tried to put my arm around him and tell him I loved him, and he just pushed me away. And I'll tell you something, son, that really hurts me.
Thanks, dude.
So when I read this, I can relate to that.
Thank you very much. What's your name, please? Rod. Rod. What was the difference between Rod, and Catherine almost got it, what was the difference between Rod and everybody else? They shared their own experiences, it was like opening up the door. Otherwise, there was a lot of resistance banging against the door because people don't open up naturally. Sometimes you have to allow the safe place for them to open up. That night after this boy wrote this, he hung himself. And the teacher said she will never ever look at a student in the same way again. The mother and the father have both called me now for 6 months asking me why. Why? I have no answers for them. I get calls once a week from parents whose sons or daughters have taken their lives. If I'm close enough, I get into my car and I go over and I hold them. Otherwise, I just let them cry. I have no answers. I have no answers. I can tell you, though, one of the key things is eliciting trust. The Utica schools did a survey. They did a survey, and they said it was a drug and alcohol survey. But I thought that one of the key points to the whole survey, because I spoke there about a week and a half ago, one of the key points was where would students say they would turn for help if they were in trouble? At grade 8, 58% said they would turn to their friends. At grade 10, 68% said they would turn to their friends. At grade 12, 70% said they would turn to their friends. Parents were number 3 down on the list at 30% across the board. Teachers were at 10%. Now, what that says is that it is not safe. I don't feel safe. Well, I have to tell you tonight, I don't want any of you to walk out tonight saying that this was just a rhetoric exchange. So I want to give you some techniques to start to build trust. Because I want you to walk away with some tangible things that you can take tonight when you go home and tomorrow and the next day and continue to build. I've developed 2 national concepts that are now being used across the board around the country. And I started it basically with my own family as I started everything. Then I took it out to my friends. Then I took it out into my work. And the first concept is called the 30-second counseling session. And basically it requires no intervention skills, none whatsoever. said empathy and empathy. What's your first name, sir? Richard. Richard, assuming that I was your son, and you saw me walking around the house, and you saw me really down, and really feeling frustrated, and you saw the actions, and you came up to me, and you said, Jim, what's going on? I see you really looking down these days. What's happening? Well, maybe, Richard, at that moment, I am willing to trust you a little bit. Maybe I say to you, Dad, I'm having a ton of problems at school. There are kids picking on me all the time. I'm really experiencing a lot of pain there. Okay? And you say to me, you say, Jim, you want to talk about it some more? And I say, no, Dad, maybe that's all at that moment that I'm able to give you. And so, what you do is you store it, okay? You see, this is all trust building is. It's real simple. You store it. You store what I just said. And 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 1 week later, you come up to me and you say to me in the house, hey Jim, whatever happened to that problem in school? What's going on? Whatever happened to that problem? Anything happened with it? Are you okay these days? Anybody in the room, what do you imagine that Jim thinks at this moment? Anybody? He listened. And he remembers. Now, everybody in the room, who do you think that Jim is going to go to the next time that he has a problem? Yeah, his dad. His dad. Now, let me ask you, was that an $80 pair of Reeboks? No. Okay? Was that an expensive family vacation? It was so simple. So simple. And that's all of us in this room. We want to feel like we're valued. Richard, if you went to work, and all of a sudden one day you left work and you were sick, and you went home and you didn't come back for 5 or 6 days, and none of your co-workers ever called you up to ask you, could they help you with anything? Is there anything you need? How would you feel about going back on the 6th or 7th day after that? Very depressed, okay? Now, the opposite side, Richard, assuming you went to work, you had to leave, that you were sick, and that afternoon, and for subsequent days after that, several of your co-workers said, Richard, can we help out with the kids? Do you need us to pick up your paycheck? Do you want us to send some groceries home? How would you feel about the 6th or 7th day then? A whole lot better. And it's sometimes so simple. It's in the phone call, it's in feeling valued. At the top of the hierarchy of needs for every one of us in this room is to feel like we are valued. We are valued. I do a lot of speaking for the Mad and Sad programs around the country. And I love these programs, not because of the drunk driving, which I think is invaluable, but what I love about it is the fact that it's the contract for life. The contract for life that parents and their sons and daughters sign. And what this contract says is that your son or daughter can be smashed out of their minds, and that they can call you up, and that they feel good enough and safe enough that they can call you up and you have to pick them up. And you can't get angry until cooler heads prevail. Can you imagine, all of you in this room, how wonderful it would be in our lives, what harmony we would bring to our lives if we could create this with our families, with our friends, with the people that we work with, where we wouldn't do reaction stuff back and forth? I was about 10 years ago, I raised 10,000 pairs of gloves and mittens for the earthquake area in Italy. And I got over to Naples, and I actually flew into Rome. I was at the Rome airport, and I was supposed to go to Naples to stay with his family to distribute the gloves and mittens, because it was wintertime. And I got to the Rome airport, got off the plane, and called this family to tell them I was on my way out to see them. Well, the only one at home was the matriarch of the family, the grandmother. And I didn't speak any Italian, she didn't speak any English. So I started on the phone, starting to explain to her who I was and what I wanted. I needed directions out to the house. She started answering me in Italian. Now I started to try and get myself a little bit more, try to explain a little bit better, and she countered again in Italian. And I noticed something happening in this exchange. I noticed all of a sudden that my voice started to raise the more frustrated I got. And it kept on raising, and I noticed at the other end of the phone, her voice correspondingly was raising. And finally, 10 minutes into the conversation, I'm standing at the Rome airport, screaming into a payphone at the top of my lungs in English to somebody who was screaming back at me in Italian, and there wasn't a prayer in this whole world that we were ever going to understand each other. Not a prayer. And that's what reaction base is. That's what anger is. It escalates to a point where there is no room for communication. You are just banging back and forth. So I want to give you a technique tonight. And I'm going to leave, as I have my address with Jim. And I want you to write to me if you're able to do this. Okay? It's a technique that I've developed all over the country. And it's for families. It's called the 24-hour challenge. And it's based a lot on this SAD contract for life. It's an agreement between every member of the family that for 24 hours there will be no negativity, no put-downs, no demeaning comments, no hurtful nothing hurtful, no sarcasm, nothing that puts another human being in the family down. Now, the kicker to all of this is that if you go 23 hours and 59 minutes and you put somebody down, you have to start all over again. I have a question for all of you in the room. Be honest with this. Raise your hands, both parents and students that came back tonight. Raise your hands if you think that you could go home tonight and take on this 24-hour challenge and make it happen. Raise your hand. Thank you. I have to tell all of you, that there's no doubt in my mind personally that those of you in the room who just raised your hands, there is no doubt in my mind personally that you live alone. None. It's a way of life. It's a way of life. But I want you to try it. I want you to try it, and if you make it 24 hours, get together everybody in the family, say, how does this feel? And then if it works for 24 hours, say, well, let's try it for another 24. And if it works for that 24, let's try it for one more, and all of a sudden, you'll discover that when there is a put down, instead of becoming the norm, it becomes the exception. Now these are techniques you could take out tomorrow, tonight, and put them into practice. So these are the tangible things. But you know, there's a struggle with trust all the time. And trust is still the key issue. And it's still real fragile. And for most of you in the room who are parents, you know it didn't come with an owner's manual. We had no guidelines. We had no way of keying in. We follow sometimes by example, but sometimes the example doesn't apply to us. Well, I have to tell you that there's a wonderful friend in my life. And she's lived through hell in the last 4, 5, 6 years with her son. And she's made some mistakes, but now she's at a point of evolution where her courage has superseded the mistakes. And she's done some incredible things in the last 6 months to a year in terms of being a parent, in terms of giving her son not an enabling person, but a strong person, a role model, and yet somebody who was there to love and support him. I've lived through this with her. She's one of my dearest friends, and I thought it was very important that many of you tonight who are living through similar hell, who are struggling with your families, I thought it was very important that some of the things that she's lived through that maybe you could identify with. So I'd like to introduce my friend Susan Thiem.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me? I'm used to yelling all on my own and not have one of these around, you know. I see so many people, and I know you're here because you care. A parent, 2 sons, and I am a recovering parent. I'm basically recovering from too much mothering. Now, a lot of your kids would say, wow, I really want my mom or dad to, recover from all this stuff, from controlling them too much. Except what happens when I needed to stop controlling them, I needed to stop enabling them and rescuing them, and they had to then experience the logical consequences of their own actions. And I was a great rescuer. I'm going to tell you about 10 years of my life and some of the examples of how I've become strong. And I have to do this in like 10 minutes. I saw my youngest son is 23 years old. And I saw him drunk the first time at 13. I was aware that I wasn't aware that there was pot smoking going on. A number of years after that. I denied it. I didn't want to face it. To stand up here and tell all of you people that I could be that stupid and ignorant has been really difficult for me to be able to do. I didn't want to face it because I didn't know what to do. I think with a school like this, you're all learning a lot, so maybe you wouldn't make those same mistakes, and you can find some help. Getting through the denial is realizing that there's help out there, is not being ashamed of yourself. It's getting through our ego and putting it aside so that we can help ourselves, so that we can help our kids. By the time my son was 16, he was not in school anymore in his 16th year. He didn't have a job. He had wrecked a car, and most of the time he was living with his friends and not living at home. Now, I said something has got to be wrong with this picture. I had people tell me, though, for a while that kids will just be kids, boys will be boys. Finally, he had his first evaluation at a recovery center. And for the first time, somebody believed me that I wasn't crazy, that there was a cause to his behavior and the situation that his life was in. And that he was probably an alcoholic. That is really tough to face. It's like, this is my little kid. In the next few years, he was in 4 recovery programs because, unfortunately, the first time usually doesn't work. He is now hopefully recovering. He's taken a lot of big steps, and each program has helped him to take more steps. During that time, he has been, what I might say, kind of on the streets. I know there have been times when he hasn't known where he would sleep the next night. And because of his destructive behavior in my home, and because of his destructive behavior in his father's home, he couldn't live with us anymore. And I never, ever thought that I would ever be able to say that to one of my children. I know that there was a while where he lost a lot of weight, and I know it was because he wasn't able to eat a lot. There's a point where you don't run out and get them in the middle of the night anymore, where they have to feel the consequences of their actions when they're chemically induced. That's the only way that they learn is through pain. And the only way that I've learned my recovery is through pain, and to know that I didn't want to have one more day like this, so I had to find a way. As he went into his first recovery program, I first went to Al-Anon, and then I learned of a program called Families Anonymous, who are for parents whose children have serious behavior problems or chemical dependencies. I have gotten my strength and my hope through that program for me. And I stopped controlling him. The more I controlled him, the worse it got. And when I started to let go, and he could feel these consequences, and I had to realize that in letting go, he could kill himself, or he could hurt somebody else. But I couldn't stop that, because when they're out any night, we don't have any control over what they're doing. Parenting is the biggest responsibility that we have in life, certainly, and the most serious responsibility. And Jim has talked about the cats in the cradle and things that we have to be thinking about as parents, and things that we have to do to take on this responsibility. And yet it's the toughest responsibility to let go of when we need to let go of them. We were a very lucky family, and we were a very loving family. And I thought we had a lot of trust in our family. But somehow all that just didn't work well for my one son. Most recently, the toughest thing I've had to go through was him in jail. Now, I didn't think I'd handle one night in jail, let alone 30 days in jail. And we agreed as a family that we would not bail him out, and that's literally bailing him out, or figuratively bailing him out, that he had to face the consequences of his actions. there have been moments through that time and moments through maybe a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning where I have just lived 1 minute at a time or 5 minutes at a time, praying and hoping that he would be healthy and that he would survive because I couldn't help anymore. He got through his time in jail healthy, and we talked a lot on the phone during that time. I was there to support him, to receive his phone calls. And I don't imagine that there are any of you that could quite understand living through something like that. Through the support of the groups that I've been with and the support of my friends, but my friends who have been terribly supportive of me don't understand unless they've gone through it. I encourage, I have a flyer that I, along with some other suggestions from some other parents, have put together for you. They'll be on a back table out there, and I only have 50 of them. There are a whole lot of you here. So maybe if you take maybe one to a family, and then I'll have some other copies here for the school, and they can make some more for you if they're overwhelmed. I have on here some ideas for healthy behavior for parents, and a little bit about logical consequences, and a little bit about getting through denial, and some signs and signals of when I went into one of the evaluations with my son, and I sat there and I read these signs and signals. And that helped me get through the denial, because that's the way our life was. It's just so tough to believe that it's happening to you and your family. I've also listed some places that you could call for help. If you think that there could be a problem, you can just call and talk to somebody there and say, I think maybe this is happening. And you can go at your own speed, and you can, evaluate the situation. And any of the programs will send you information and pamphlets and just a world full of information for you. Still have time for it? I'd like to read something that is called Letting Go, and this is for parents. And this has really helped me a lot, sometimes when I've wondered what to do. Oh, I should have my glasses. To let go does not mean to stop caring. It means that I can't do it for someone else. To let go is not to cut myself off. It's the realization that I can't control another. To let go is not to enable, but to allow learning from natural consequences. I'll just say a little bit about enabling here too. Some of the things that I did as a mother to enable is to rescue them from the pain, to maybe do their homework when it was due the next day, and I mean, not to do their homework, but let's say, there's a big project, and all of a sudden the kids, just don't quite have it together, and it's due tomorrow, and I can't imagine any of you have ever been in that situation. And of course, what do we do as good parents? We help them out, right? Well, I mean, I don't want to come across as a real hard nose here that you can't help them out once in a while. But when it happens over and over again, I mean, what happens to you as parents when you don't get something turned in, when you have a deadline? I mean, there's something for teamwork, and then there's something that has to do with just natural consequences. To let go is to admit powerlessness, which means the outcome is not in my hands. To let go is not to try to change or blame another. It's to make the most of myself. To let go is not to care for, but to care about. To let go is not to fix, but to be supportive. To let go is not to judge, but to allow another to be a human being. To let go is not to be in the middle arranging all the outcome, but to allow others to affect their own destinies. Now, I was really good at trying to control the situations because I really thought that I knew best. And one of the things that we do, that I did, and when we enable our children, is to tell them that they don't know how to do it. When we think that we can always tell them what to do, that's the message that we give them, is you don't know how to do it. But we have to let them learn. I think it's really important to show them, and then we have to let them learn. To let go is not to be protective. It's to permit another to face reality. To let go is not to deny, but to accept. To let go is not to nag, scold, or argue, but instead to search out my own shortcomings and correct them. To let go is not to adjust everything to my desires, but to take each day as it comes and cherish myself in it. To let go is not to regret the past, but to grow and live for the future. To let go is to fear less and love more. I'm glad to see you all here, as I said, and I really wish you all a lot of peace and harmony and acceptance and love of each other and families.
That's been very difficult for her. It's been very difficult for her to openly admit that it wasn't a perfect family. Give her another round of support. Okay, here's the part of the program that to me is the most valuable part of the program ever. I'm going to ask parents to write on a 3x5 card your greatest fear as the parent of a teenager. And then what I'm going to ask is all the students who came back tonight, I want you up on stage in some way. Not to, don't jam each other too much, but give each other a little bit of room. And what I want to do in the next remaining time is I want all of you to really get to understand how to dialogue back and forth so you talk to each other rather than put downs, rather than demeaning comments, but to really learn to talk to each other. And I would ask all of you parents to do one thing for me tonight. One thing. I would ask that if you have ever said it, that you will make a personal mental note never to say it again. And the phrase is, to your son or daughter, if you don't like it here, you can go someplace else. The truth is, can you guys hold this for a second? Very sweet. The truth is, where would you want her to go? Where would you want her to go? So eliminate that from your vocabulary. It's a power struggle. I want to show all of you in the room how to get out of that power struggle. So what I want you to do, can I have those 3x5 cards? Can I get some of the students, Jim? Will you help out and pass these out, some of you guys, and everybody who came, all the students come up and just sit up on stage. Yeah, can you pass those out to parents? Parents, raise your hands. It's a large room, and I want to make sure you guys get a card. Help out. Students, everybody come up here and stand up on stage. If some of you guys need it, we have some pencils here. Raise your hands also with some pencils. All you guys just sit down. This is going to be a 5-minute thing. Yeah, just your greatest fear as the parent of a teenager. Now, when you're through, can you guys cut me a little slack? Hey guys? Guys, cut me a little slack, okay? Just do the best you can to sit down. You can move the papers and do whatever you want. Jim, can you see if you can get some people ahead? Raise your hands if you have the 3x5 cards and you're finished. And some of you guys can go out and help pick up the 3x5 cards. Some of you guys go out and help pick up the 3x5 cards. Thanks. Raise your hands, parents, if you're finished with the 3x5 cards. Yeah, your greatest fear is the parent of a teenager. If you need pencils, thanks guys. By the way, thanks for coming back tonight. That's powerful. Can some of you, after you're finished writing a 3x5 card, if you could give it to somebody and then return it back to me. Okay. Any other parent? Raise your hand if you haven't. All right, here's the way it works. And what I need from all of you is a little bit of cooperation, especially from you guys up here. Because it's more crowded up here than obviously it is out there. But the thing is that we needed to face each other. Okay. The way that this works is the only ground rules for this is that you guys cannot slam your parents. Your parents cannot slam them. Okay? Now, the most predominant thing that I have seen on these cards, and I haven't gone through everyone, but I would say probably 3/4 of these cards, the most predominant thing is their greatest fear as parents is that something major will happen to you due to alcohol and drugs. What would you want to tell parents, any of you, what would you want to tell them to give them, to make them feel less afraid around alcohol and drugs? Anybody? Somebody?
Tell us straight out that you won't do it.
Go ahead.
That you won't do it, and you promise that you won't.
Parents, does that make you feel less afraid? Parent, anybody want to respond? Go ahead. Yes, go ahead. I'm going to run back and forth. Can you help me out?
She doesn't do it, somebody else might. Somebody else driving in the car, going the opposite way.
Thank you. Anybody want to respond to that? She says that if you... Go ahead. Stand up. Yeah. Just...
What I would say was that if you really loved me, you would confide in me and you'd trust me. And if I really said that I didn't have those problems, I would really expect for my parents to believe me. And my parents, because they love me and trust me, they would.
Parents, does that make you feel any less afraid? Until she's proven. How do you guys feel about somebody saying that statement? Until you prove it, then, yeah, go ahead.
I find that
Go ahead, stand up.
I don't like the fact that you have to, prove yourself to your parents. Just make sure that you got a really trusted relationship. You should really
Wait. This is not, I don't want to make this free for all the time. I want to show you what's going on. Go ahead.
Kids will say anything.
Go talk, I'm transparent, you talk to them.
Or you guys will say anything to make us feel good. What I'm saying is, you'll say anything to make us believe what you're saying is true, and we can't believe you.
They can't believe you. Go in the back, yeah.
You do anything to not believe us. All you try to do is control us. If you don't
I don't want to say anything, but this woman is about to leap over the seat over here. So
The problem is, when you call us, make a promise to us that you will not drink, and then come home stoned. It's kind of hard to believe that we can actually believe in your next promise.
how do you guys feel about that? Go. Stand up.
One thing I'm not going to do is make a promise I'm not going to keep. If I'm at a party, there's a lot of people drinking, I'm going to talk to my mom. And if I am planning on drinking, I'll let her know that. Usually I'll stay at the party when we do that. I won't leave, and I definitely won't drive. So I think one thing that should go on is be honest and tell the truth. Like, if you are going to drink, I'm not going to say I've never drank before. I've been at parties, and kids do drink. I think you've got to learn how to, still say no. And be honest with your parents, and they should trust your decisions and how you want to do it.
I want to show you guys something. I want to show you. I always do this by instinct, okay? I let this go on. Are you guys really communicating at all? We could do this conceivably. We could do this on a marathon basis until all of us fell asleep going back and forth in this exchange. I want to show you how it can stop. Go ahead.
My comment is not too long ago I was sitting up there, and I know what these kids are up to, and I was sitting up there not more than
Wait a minute. Okay. All right. I want to show you. Wait a minute.
I'm not putting them down, but I was okay. My son that's sitting up there would say, hey, Mom, I'm not going to be able to come over. I need a ride.
Wait a minute. Wait. This is wonderful. I want you to hold this up. I want you to hold it. Tell me, okay? I want to show you something. Tell me, What are you feeling now? What are you feeling?
I'm just a little confused. They don't think that I would understand. I mean,
And what else?
when I've been to parties myself, so stoned that I couldn't.
Wait a minute. Just what are you feeling?
I'm hurt.
Oh, you're hurt. Okay, so hold that.
My leg hurts.
Hold, please. Don't talk to them. What are you feeling? You say you're hurt? Okay, hold that. What did she say she was feeling? 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 And what did she say she was feeling? Do you understand? No one misunderstood your feelings.
But I would hope that I would have my son who's sitting up there feel that he could call me and say, Mom, I'm blasted. You gotta come get me. I had too much to drink.
Time out. Where's the son? Time out. I'm not putting you on the spot, but I just want to ask you a question. What did you hear your mother just say? She's hurt. All the rest of it was philosophy and a lot of psychobabble and a lot of stuff. What do you think he heard that you say? Yeah, so? And that's the beginning of opening up the door to communication. Okay? Now, what else would you like to tell your parents to make them feel less afraid? Anybody? Stand up.
What I don't understand is why my parents, they always think they were so good when they were younger. My dad doesn't, but my mom always says that she got straight A's. She never did any drugs, she never drank, and that I should be the same way as her, got the same way she did.
Okay, time out. Parents, what are you feeling now?
Yeah.
Thank you. Parents, what did she say that she was feeling? What else did she say she was feeling? Okay, now I want to show you something. What did she say she was feeling? And what did she say she was feeling? Do you see how we get confused? If I asked 20 of you, you'd have a different response to what she was feeling. So I'll ask collectively again, of all of the parents in the room, what was she feeling? Nobody ever confuses when you talk at a feelings level. There's no confusion. But we have a tendency, instead of talking at a feelings level, we have a tendency to say to them, you're grounded, you can't go out, I don't want you to be with your friends, you're hanging around with the wrong people. When in reality, if you say to them, I'm afraid for you. Not, you're grounded comes out as jamming again. I'm afraid for you comes out in a loving, caring way. Any parent want to respond to what you just said? Any parent? Go ahead.
As a parent, we want to look good in our kids' eyes, no
Say it
matter
to
what.
them. Don't say it to me. Talk real loud.
We want to look good to you guys, that's all. We want you to look good to us. We just keep portraying that. We keep hiding these nights. We were once bad, like we wanted.
Say that. That's really loud. Say that front. It's really good. Hold it close. Can you turn up the mic a little bit further?
I know as a teenager, you were faced with so many temptations, because I was there once too. And it was so scary. And we as parents don't want you kids to do what we did, because we were so bad.
Anybody want to respond? Go. Stand up.
You're asking me why I did that? Why did you do it when you don't want us to take, when you don't want us to do this?
Why can't you let us live our own life?
Yeah.
You already
Why
had your
can't you
chance.
let us hear that?
Wait. Time out. This is great. Wait. What are you feeling now?
Like angry because you guys.
Stop. What are you feeling now? Thank you. What is he feeling now? Is there anybody in the room that could doubt that he's angry? But do you realize if you continued on, what would happen? What's your first name? You're great. Huh? Pete. What would happen if Pete kept on going on his on that dialogue that he was opening up now? What would happen? What? Defensive. Yeah, I mean, there would be this incredible back and forth, and you guys would be here for another few hours going back and forth to try to resolve this. Now, go ahead, Pete, continue.
Why, you guys had your chance to live your lives and grow up. Why can't we have our chance?
They don't want to make the same mistakes they made.
Why don't you let us
I've got adopted friends that are very close to me, and I don't want them to make the same mistakes I made.
But how else are you going to learn if you don't make mistakes?
Anger is one thing, but hostility is another.
I have a question. Guys, come get a little slack in this room. What just happened? What? Please tell me this.
We lost control.
And what happened on this side? They lost control. And what was happening in this exchange? All of a sudden, it was starting to work. Then all of a sudden, it was out of control. Go.
I just want to show everybody, this is kind of from a different end perspective. I always had to be perfect growing up. I'm 36 years old right now. I had to be the perfect daughter, the perfect everything. It has to be a happy medium there for these kids. They can't always be expected to be perfect. You can't throw that at them because they're going to be like me and live miserable the rest of their life. And I'm having to deal with that now.
Thank you for being honest. Can you hold that? What did you guys feel like when she was talking? Anybody? What did you feel like when she was talking? Yes. Somebody's understanding you. And what else did you feel like? Yes. That she made her own decision. What else did you feel like? She cared. Why, guys? Why did you relate to the fact that you thought she cared? Stand up, that's powerful.
Because she sounded sincere in what she was saying.
And what made you think that she sounded sincere? No, this is an excellent point. It's got to be driven home. Go ahead.
And the form that she said it, she kind of spoke clearly, and that, she got her point made, I guess you could say. That she realizes that us kids, teenagers, have pressures, and that parents don't even understand them.
Thank you. But somebody else said it over here. She can relate. Why did you think she could relate? She's using her own experience, but what else beyond just using her own experience? What did you feel in her voice, and what did you feel in the way that she put it? What? Emotions, and what else? Yes.
She had parents too.
Yes, and? What is it? They expected too much. Okay? I could feel your love, by the way. I mean, it was really wonderful. It was coming through. And most of all, I could feel your vulnerability. And you see, most of us in the room who are adults, we've never been given permission to be vulnerable. So we've spent our whole lives not being able to be in touch with our feelings. So it's easier to get off on the psychology. It's easier to get off on the philosophy. It's tougher for all of us to say, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm afraid, I'm resentful. And yet, if we spoke in those terms, we would be able to communicate. Because no one misunderstands that. It's when we get into our own personal philosophy, we have to get our own points in, we have to get what's inside of us. In terms of the last word, is when it breaks down. Now let's continue to try this. What would you want to tell them? What would you want to tell them to make them less afraid? And start to talk at a feelings level. Go ahead.
I think we have to realize that we're not mindless. They've instilled us with values and morals, and that we should trust our judgment.
What are you feeling now?
We're not really mad, we're just aggravated.
Aggravated. Parents, what did she say she was feeling? Aggravated. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else that hasn't spoken? Yeah. Oh, one of my favorite people in the entire world. Come here. Go ahead.
I'm for myself, and I have to say I've been through all these problems and more of people twice my age. And I've told my parents, and they believe me, and I made all those mistakes. One of these days you're going to make the wrong mistake, and it's going to kill you. And what are you going to do then? Because you will be able to go through it and make those mistakes. What are you supposed to do then?
What are you feeling now?
I'm angry.
And what else?
I'm disappointed.
And what else?
And I'm hurt.
Anybody? What did she say she was? Yeah. Could you feel it?
I can relate to that.
Go ahead.
Well, for myself, a lot of parents think, like, let the kid make their own choices or let them mess up once or twice. But for myself, I messed up one big time. I'm a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. The last couple of years, I had big time drinking problems, and last year stopped it off. Last year, I was in school where I drank with a few other people, and I passed out in the bathroom, and the girl I drank with almost died. She had a seizure and started going through convulsions. They took her away, and when I came back to school the next day, they told me the story about what happened to her. And from that day forward, I was scared to look at the bottle or drink or anything. When I went home, me and my mom discussed what was going to happen, and I said I need help. I have a problem, and I have to face it. And from that day forward, I look and I hear everybody talk about let the kids make good choices, or they're gonna do what we did, stuff like that. I've learned from my mistake, and I know that I won't mess up. And I'm hoping everybody here does the same thing.
Parents, what'd you feel when he was talking? Raise your hand, anybody. Yes.
I felt honesty and trust and that he was willing to risk.
Okay. What'd you feel when he was speaking? Respect. Okay. Proud of him. Okay. Why? Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to be even a little more honest. He's very loving and in a way a little jealous.
A little jealous.
He made the decision to go for the help, and you followed through on it. You didn't do a pound of that on those that tried.
Any other parent, what'd you feel like when he was saying thank you? I really appreciate that. Any other parent, what'd you feel like when he was saying, when he was talking?
I felt he was very brave.
You felt he was very brave. How'd you feel about what the parents just said to you now?
Make me feel better.
Made you feel better? And why? Why did it make you feel better? Why was their responses? Why did their responses make you feel better?
That I did something quicker than they could have done. That I realized I had a problem with identity. That I spoke up for they could.
Yeah. In this just brief couple minutes, what just happened in this room? Huh? So somebody raise your hand because everybody's throwing it out at once. Yes.
Dialogue.
Dialogue. Yes. And what else?
Communication. Listen.
And you listen. And what else? Caring. And what else? And what else? Yeah. Everyone came together. And what else? Yes. Communication. Now, all of you, what just happened in this room? Anybody? Raise your hand. Yes.
Empathy, meaning be supportive.
Empathy, meaning being supported. Yes.
For the first time, I mean,
Stand up, because I have a feeling this is going to be good.
instead of just hearing him, you listen. And there's a big difference. I mean, a lot of parents, they'll hear what they hear, they'll hear what you say, but they won't listen, they won't understand, and they'll still tell you what they've been planning on telling you ever since you walked in the door. I mean,
What are you feeling now?
I don't know, openness.
Openness. Can you stop? Because what was going to just happen, anybody in the room? What was just going to happen if he continued? Yes. There was going to be a confrontation. And why do you think that confrontation was going to occur? But what was it in you? What were you saying that you thought that confrontation might occur? I'm going to ask them the next. What do you think you just said that this man actually felt that there might be a confrontation?
I think it was us playing out of negative.
You were pointing at a negative. Okay? What's your first name? Ronnie. And David, right? Or Damon. Okay. Both of these people came from a position of love. But what happened? Rodney? Ronnie. What happened with Ronnie as opposed to Damon? What happened with Ronnie? Yes.
He spoke from the I position and didn't make any accusation.
Yeah, he didn't make an accusation.
And Damon started blaming us right there.
Thank you. And Damon, can you see what just happened? So what Ronnie did was he gave us an open door. All of a sudden, for a couple of minutes, there was this dialogue going on in the room, and everybody was together, and everybody could hear each other. And what was the key? What was the key to it all? Anybody? iMessage. Ronnie was vulnerable. Ronnie was real. Ronnie was open. Ronnie was honest. Ronnie came from a position of his own pain. Instead of, you did this, you did this, you should do this. It shuts it down immediately. Now, Damon, turn it around and reframe it. And let them know in a different way what you just wanted to say.
I feel like I'm not being heard when I speak.
Thank you. What changed just now for all of you parents? You heard him. Anybody else? What changed for you parents? Yes. He was feeling something about it. Did you feel threatened by it? No. Did you feel threatened before when he was starting on that track? Okay? Can you start to get the picture of what it takes to actually make communication and love work? It took me a long, long time in my life to get in front of a group, as it took Susan tonight to get in front of a group and to say, I tried to take my own life. I spent my whole life like this. Don't get too close. You're going to find out that I'm afraid. Don't get too close. You're going to find out that I'm weak. Don't get too close. You're going to find out that I'm insecure, and maybe you will leave me. And so I spent my whole life hiding behind my accomplishments, instead of coming from a position of what was really going on inside of me. I wanted to say it. That's what they want to say. That's what you want to say. Now, guys, help them a little bit more with this whole trust issue around drugs and alcohol. Anybody else? Anybody else? What would you want to tell them to make them feel more trusting? Yes? Go ahead. And try and think of it in the terms of the way we just put it. Stand up.
First of all, I would think that it's better for parents to share their experiences with us so we can learn from them. And I would also like to say I would not like the parents to shut us out because they seem to push us away because we're trying to get closer. My mother, she pushed me away, and now I have to, I become like her. I don't want people near me. I don't want anybody to be close to me. And I just want parents to understand what we're going through. And I don't want them to push us away because, like you said, we inherited. My father, now that I'm living with him, he tries to get close to me, but I don't want him to hear me. I just want to push him away.
Some of you guys support her. What just happened again, parents? What is it? She's hurting. And what does that elicit in you? Makes you want to listen and communicate. Okay? See how easy it is? All it took was you guys giving her permission to open up. There's no magic in any of this. Everybody thinks that this is just magic. Huh? There's no method to any of this. Yes? Go ahead. You got to say it loud.
I wish the kids could understand, too, as parents, just the way they feel. We're scared.
Say it.
We are scared.
Say it louder.
We're so scared for you, and we're scared because we're going to let you grow up, and you're going to do what you want to do because we have instilled values in you. But we're always going to worry about it. We're always going to say, oh, I hope nothing happens to him. And that time we get the phone call, it's going to tear us up. That doesn't mean we don't trust you. That doesn't mean we're going to try and lock you up in a closet. We just want you to understand that we're scared. We're so scared we're going to lose you. Scared that the day that I'm going to get that phone call and they're going to say, I'm sorry, can you meet me at St. John's Hospital? She's not coming home. My God, there's such a fear. And not one of you can tell me that if I was out at a party and I know my daughter said this, you wouldn't be scared that I might not come home?
Wait. You had him and you lost him, and you had him and you lost him, and you had him and you lost him, and you were going back and forth. Okay? You were trying so hard that you had him and you lost him.
Okay, I understand.
Wait. I want to jump on this point. What did you hear that she said? Anybody? Yes. Sit.
Kind of hard to say as a word. Sometime I was drinking and I was at a party, and I had enough courage to call my dad up and tell him something. I called him up. I did it this time because I know my mom would really get mad at me because she came home when I was drunk one time and it really disappointed her. She couldn't believe that I was drunk. She wouldn't take the pain that I was drunk. But I called my dad and I said, Dad, come pick me up. I'm at a party. Please don't tell Mom that I'm drunk. And so he came pick me up. My dad forgot all about it. And I never knew about it. I don't tell my mom. My dad, he understands my problems. That's why I do that.
Wait. Yeah, I wanted to be respectful.
What would you like to say to them? What are you feeling now?
Like
What did she say that she was feeling, and what did that elicit in you? Why are you standing up and saying to all these parents what you're feeling inside? What is it?
Earlier on when they were saying that they were scared of the breast cancer, I had a bottle of inside that my dad kept picking up and I could carry it. And he won't.
Wait. What are you feeling now? Scared, okay? Parents, what did you say she was feeling? Okay? You listen to a whole lot of things go around it, and what was the key point? I'm going to go back to that. What? Scared, okay? Now, I'm going to ask you the same question. You danced all over the place, okay? Yeah, say it.
I'm scared.
Thank you, okay? Do you understand that sometimes it's like you feel like you gotta fill up the space? You gotta fill up the space. This is what it's all about. Yes?
If I may, please, I do empathize. I do understand. I'm scared due to training in my background. I've seen drugs. I've seen bodies in morgues. I've seen suicides. And I've seen the tragic results of drunk driving. I, too, am scared.
Thank you. How did you react to what she just said? Anybody? How'd you react? What is it? You're scared of those things too. Anybody else? How'd you react? Did you feel threatened? Did you feel, what'd you feel? Anybody? Go ahead. Respect. Why? Because she was honest and she told you what she's feeling. Okay? All of what you're learning tonight is coming back and forth from both of you. You have it inside of you, all of you. There is no magic to this. All it takes is you allowing yourself to be real. I'm always flattered. I'm 51 years old and the kids call me Jimmy. I'm always touched by this. But it took a long time for me to understand that the power in our lives is in the vulnerability. Now, I am willing to make all of you an offer. This is just the beginning for all of you. You come back in a month or two from now and bring at least one other person. And I'm willing to come back and facilitate this and keep it going. So I make that challenge to you. And I've seen schools that have kept this going because I think it is essential. They're afraid, you're afraid, and if you're honest with one another, you can start to communicate. And you can also push each other away. And the difference is allowing yourself to be real. Cut the psychobabble, cut the philosophy, cut all the stuff. You guys too, cut all the garbage and just get to the heart of what it is, which is you're afraid, they're afraid. Let's get together and support each other and love each other. I'm afraid. I'm seeing incredible stuff out there around the country. I'm scared. But what I know is that the more that I come from an anticipation of a problem, the better the chances are that that problem won't beat me. So all of you coming tonight took an act of courage for you to be here. And it's an act of love. It's an act of love for them. And it's a positive step for you. If you let it stop here, you're gone. Every day something's beaten down. And every day the fear gets greater. The more you can keep the lines of communication, the more the Ronnies of the world stand up and allow you to see that they're in pain, that they're going through some problems, that they're going through some difficulties, the better the chances are that this will work. This will work. And one person can have a voice. I came back from Australia on a national speaking tour, and on the way back I was disgusted at what I saw. I saw 70% divorce rate in Australia, the third highest teen suicide problem in the entire world, and I decided that somebody better have a voice. So I sat down and I wrote a letter to all the world's leaders. And I asked them to look at pain in kids and what they could do in their administration to negate the next generation from experiencing the same type of pain. And I asked them to look at this, and I asked to be invited to their countries so that I could sit down for 15 minutes with them, and so that I could talk to them about what they could do to make sure that their kids came away in the next generation healthier inside and outside. You know, I never thought anybody would answer me, much less invite me. I've gotten invitations already for 14 world leaders. I'm leaving this summer on a world tour to meet with these leaders. If you don't believe in this room that one person has a voice, then come up afterwards and spend some time with me, and I'll tell you how to go about doing it. I'll tell you how to go about doing it. There's a box here, guys. Where is it? Oh, great, yeah. Would you give that to me? Where's Jim? Oh, no, not Jim Benjamin. Come here. By the way, I want to tell all of you, this is a little bit off the record. I lost by 42 votes for senior class vice president to Jim Bannon. Okay? So needless to say, and I ran under the campaign slogan, "Gimme Jimmy." Needless to say, I believe to this day that he sucked all those votes from that campaign slogan. So I want to tell you, about a year ago I did a labor of love. I cut a tape called "The Best Things in Life Are Things." It's designed to bond families. It's designed for all of you to look at issues the same way you're looking at tonight. It's designed for all of you to reinforce some of the stuff that we put together. That's how I got here. I credit this young man incredibly with the energy and the foresight and the persistence to keep staying on top of it and calling me all the time and going to Eric Homolka and going to Al Barrow and going to Jim Bannon. Going to Jim Bannon and keep on going until the persistence paid off. This young man is responsible for this evening, for these 4 days, and for all the love and the caring that's in this room. It began with him. I think he deserves credit.
Alright, this is, like he said, this is how it began. My girlfriend wanted me to listen to this, and I just like kept on pushing her away. I was just like, I didn't even want nothing to do with it. I was just like, another speaker, no way. I listened to the tape. I was totally wrong about everything. It touched me in a way like I've never been touched before. It helped me out. It made my life turn around 100%. This means a lot to me. And for all of you that didn't get to hear him yesterday and today, it's all on this tape. And it's very touching.
I need every one of you who chooses to take one of these tapes home tonight. Okay? They're $10 each, but I don't care whether you send me the money now or 6 months from now or a year from now. I trust that you'll do it. If you don't have it tonight, send it to me. It's more important that somehow this gets into your hands. Somehow you find a way to start connecting as families. Somehow you find a way to start communicating. I love these kids. I really do. This is a labor of love. If I didn't do this, I dreamed I could do this. And the love that was in this school today, the caring and the support that they gave each other had to come from someplace, and it came from all of you in this room. This is the beginning. I'm willing to come back. I'm willing to come back 100% free of charge. I'm willing to come back to keep this commitment going. You keep your commitment going on your end of being here and supporting these kids, and I will come back and I will keep my commitment to making sure that we continue on. There's a chance for all of you. You showed your support tonight, you showed your love tonight, you showed your fear tonight, you showed your feelings tonight. Don't stop now. Go home and take the 24-hour challenge. Work with a 30-second counseling session. But most of all, like Ronnie, be real, be vulnerable, be open, and it works. You guys have been wonderful. And I love all of you guys. You know, whatever else everybody wants to do. You guys wait for something.
Jackie, 下麦。